He's a former media personality, army veteran, author, and outspoken advocate for veterans affairs. That's right, today we're going to look at the life, campaigns, and most importantly, the medals of US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. With a career transitioning from the battlefield to the broadcast studio, US veterans advocate Pete Hegseth was selected by US President Donald Trump as the 29th US Secretary of Defense. Tasked by Trump to reshape defense policy, Hegseth listed restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, and re-establishing deterrence as the key ingredients needed to bring back effective warfighting to the armed forces. A dynamic individual, Hegseth stated he wants a Pentagon laser-focused on lethality, meritocracy, accountability, and readiness. With that said, let's dive into his previous military career and also explore his medal awards. I've recreated Hegseth's ribbon bar using photos of him in uniform on the internet. They are a bit blurry, but correlating his ribbons with his military service, I'm pretty sure I've created an accurate reflection of his awards. Looking at his ribbon bar, we can see Hegseth was awarded 3 variations of medal decorations for distinguished or outstanding service, some with multiple awards, 4 campaign, service, or expeditionary medals, a reservist medal, foreign medal award, and 2 service ribbons. Of note, I will also mention that, outside of these service ribbons, Hegseth has 2 other separate awards which are valued highly by infantrymen: the Combat Infantryman Badge and Expert Infantryman Badge. Born in 1980, Hegseth graduated from Princeton University in 2003. During his time there, he joined the Army Reserve Officer Training Corps, and after graduation was commissioned as an officer in the Minnesota National Guard. In the early part of his career, a high achiever, he started working for Bear Stearns as an analyst, but also continued to serve in the National Guard. In 2004, his unit was called up for service at Guantanamo Bay Naval Base, where they were attached to the 3rd Battalion, 187th Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division. Known as the Rakkasans, this unit's nickname comes from the Japanese, which is roughly translated as parachute or falling umbrella. In Vietnam, these airborne troops took Hamburger Hill. During my research on the Rakkasans, using TikTok and other reliable sources, I found out that these airborne troops state they can match the US Marines drink for drink and leave a trail of destruction and swooning women wherever they go. It kind of reminds me of those swashbuckling studs from the submarine service that we've covered in previous videos. Whilst at Guantanamo, known as Gitmo, Hegseth focused on tasks related to the detention of terrorism suspects, as well as migrant operations. I doubt that involved interrogating detainees, as this would have likely been conducted by intelligence personnel, unless Hegseth had any specialist interrogation training. More likely, he was involved in managing day-to-day security duties, which with many extremist prisoners would have been a hazardous and demanding role. This granular level knowledge of Gitmo will no doubt be useful to him in managing future defence-related policy and strategy concerning the site. It is here he likely earned his first medal, the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal. The obverse features an eagle with wings displayed clutching a serpent in its claws and a shield adapted from the Great Seal of the United States superimposed behind the eagle. The reverse side of the medal features an eagle, serpent and crossed swords with the encircling inscription War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal. The ribbon is a vibrant mix of light blue, Old Glory blue, white scarlet and yellow. Working at Guantanamo, Hegseth showed his high degree of competency and was also awarded Medal number 2, the Army Commendation Medal. This medal recognises exemplary service and achievements in the field. The obverse of the medal features an American bald eagle with wings spread holding 3 crossed arrows in its talons. The eagle is superimposed over the hexagon-shaped medal. The reverse side of the medal has a blank space where the name of the recipient can be engraved, with a laurel branch below and the words for military merit. The ribbon is predominantly green with white edge stripes. 5 thin white stripes pass through the centre of the ribbon. Finishing his tour of duty in Guantanamo, after only a few months back in the States, Hegseth in 2005 again volunteered to serve alongside the Rakazans, this time in Iraq, for a one-year tour of duty lasting from the fall of 2005 until 2006. During this tour in Iraq, the 3rd Brigade Combat Team of the 101st Airborne Division under Colonel Michael Steele focused mainly on operations in Saladin Province. This area of operations, or AO, was in the heartlands of Saddam Hussein country, his homeland and tribal base of support being the town of Tikrit. Any unit operating here was in for a tough time. Reportedly, Hegseth's position was as a lieutenant and platoon leader with Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 187th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Brigade Combat Team. He commanded around 40 men, quite a responsibility. Hegseth stated, "I showed up in the 101st Airborne Division in one of the most storied units in our nation's history, with a bunch of combat vets who'd already done a tour in Iraq, and they looked at me like, who the heck is this guy?" Some elements from the 101st, including Hegseth, were initially stationed further south at Forward Operating Base Falcon in Baghdad. In command of his platoon, Hegseth, in addition to planning operations, would also have responsibility for the morale and welfare of his men. Their primary mission included conducting combat patrols, engaging insurgent forces, and working to stabilise the region. Hegseth's responsibilities would include dismounted patrolling, intelligence gathering, carrying out raids against insurgent hideouts, and other combat operations against extremist fighters. While serving at FOB Falcon, Hegseth's platoon reportedly developed and fortified a platoon sector of the company defence and executed their portion of a continuous defence for 3 months, whilst planning and executing additional offensive operations. Whilst travelling outside the wire in one of these offensive operations, Hegseth's convoy was ambushed and his vehicle struck by an RPG which failed to detonate. While the rocket-propelled grenade was certainly a well-known deadly insurgent weapon, enemy forces also used various forms of IEDs, small arms, and indirect fire such as rockets and mortars to strike coalition targets. In Baghdad, a preferred method of targeting coalition convoys would be the use of a VBID, or car bomb, whether this would be detonated remotely as a patrol passed by a vehicle or driven deliberately at the convoy. Whatever the weapon, the insurgents' primary purpose was to inflict as many casualties as possible, both against coalition troops and Iraqi civilians, whilst avoiding head-on confrontation with superior coalition forces. These were the everyday dangers facing Hegseth and his men. Baghdad at the time was hamstrung by sectarian conflict as well as a thriving insurgency. Western suburbs such as Mansour and Ghazalia were primarily Sunni Muslim, and extremist groups such as Al-Qaeda in Iraq operated from these localities, targeting coalition and Iraqi security forces as well as innocent civilians. In addition, looking east of the Tigris River in the Shia part of the city, amongst the most influential Shia militants was the radical cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. A member of an influential and prominent Iraqi family, al-Sadr was a nationalist and was dedicated to expelling the United States from Iraq. The source of his power was the Jaish al-Mahdi militia, also known as the Mahdi Army. Its base of operations in Baghdad was Sadr City. Hegseth, in FOB Falcon, was located to the south of the city. US strategy during this period was to build up a series of forward operating bases on the peripheries of these neighbourhoods and jointly patrol the areas with local security forces, gradually training them and attempting to hand over operational responsibility. In 2007, months after Hegseth left Iraq, this strategy would change with the surge. After roughly 3 months' service in Baghdad, Hegseth's unit later joined the main 3rd Brigade Combat Team force, which was based in Saladin Province. US operations in this AO centred around Contingency Operating Base Spiker. These operations were aimed to stem the flow of insurgents and supplies coming from Iraq's porous western borders, interdict and disrupt extremist networks along the Tigris River Valley, and continue efforts to strengthen the effectiveness of Iraqi security forces in provincial areas. Running through Saladin Province was Critical Highway 1, known as Route Tampa, which was regularly targeted by insurgents, targeting supply convoys heading up to US bases north in Nineveh province, such as Diamondback near Mosul. As well as warfighting, US military units also engaged in community outreach programs to build trust with the local population in Saladin and gather intelligence on insurgents' activities. Hegseth was reportedly deployed to Samarra, a town southeast of Cobb Spiker. His unit would be engaged in numerous offensive operations, combat outpost duty, patrolling, and also cordon and search operations, in addition to various time-sensitive missions. Serving several months as a platoon leader, Hegseth was then given a new assignment as a civil affairs officer, partnering with local Iraqi community leaders and conducting key engagement and negotiation with local authorities. At the end of their tour, the 187th was recognised for their bravery and effectiveness in combat, earning several commendations and awards for their service in Iraq. Reportedly, in an officer evaluation report covering the period of his deployment, Hegseth received outstanding performance and was described as an incredibly talented, battle-proven leader. Having taken charge of his platoon mere days before deployment to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, he effectively led his platoon through 5 months of combat, the report read. He planned and executed platoon operations ranging from air assault raids to the defence of a forward operating base. His performance as platoon leader has been solid. He is more than capable to operate independently, controlling not only his squads but also air support, indirect fire support, and other external combat support assets. At the end of this tour, Hegseth had earned a Second Army Commendation Medal as well as 2 other medals. Medal number 3, the Bronze Star. This medal is awarded for heroic or meritorious achievement or service. There appears to be no V for Valor device to this award, meaning it was likely awarded for meritorious service rather than a specific heroic action. However, that does not detract from the significance of the award. The medal is a bronze 5-pointed star with a plain obverse showing a superimposed bronze star with the centre line of all rays of both stars coinciding. The reverse bears the inscription Heroic or Meritorious Achievement, with a space for the name of the recipient to be engraved. The ribbon is red, edged with white, and a narrow blue stripe edged with white in the centre. For the US Army, an oak leaf cluster is added for an additional award. Of his time away, Hegseth stated, "Military deployments have never been something to enjoy, but the consequence of the actions, the shared nature of the sacrifices, and the nobility of the cause are invigorating." To be clear, I'm not talking about the killing and the death, rather the sense of purpose that pervades every action, reaction, and outcome. Medal number 4, the Iraq Campaign Medal. The obverse features a relief of the map of Iraq orientated to the north, with 2 lines representing the Tigris and Euphrates rivers superimposed over a palm wreath. Above the map, the inscription reads Iraq Campaign. The reverse side of the medal depicts the Statue of Freedom surmounting a sunburst, encircled by 2 scimitars pointing downwards with the blades crossing at the tips. Below this, the inscription reads, "For service in Iraq." The ribbon is scarlet, white, green, desert grey and black. These colours symbolise the different aspects of the campaign and the regions involved. It looks like he also has 2 campaign or service stars. I would just quickly like to highlight the sacrifices of the Minnesota National Guard. More than 8,000 deployed to Iraq from 2003 to 2011. 16 died and 79 were awarded Purple Hearts for combat-sustained injuries. In 2012, promoted to captain, Hegseth returned to active duty. He volunteered to deploy with the Minnesota National Guard to Afghanistan to conduct COIN or counterinsurgency training to Afghan forces. This was a highly risky role as insider attacks by Afghan security forces on NATO troops, known as green-on-blue attacks, were a prominent threat. By August of that year, green-on-blue incidents accounted for around 14% of total coalition casualties in Afghanistan for 2012. Hegseth was praised for his work building out lesson courses and rewriting the guidebook for the Counterinsurgency Training Centre in Afghanistan, taking hours to do research, sometimes during his off hours, and also training NATO students from multiple countries. For this service, he would have received Medal Number 5, the Afghanistan Campaign Medal. The obverse states Afghanistan Campaign and an image of the country, as well as rugged peaks symbolising the landscape. The reverse has an eagle in the centre in the front of a burst of sun rays, with "For Service in Afghanistan" written below. The image is surrounded by 2 laurel wreaths. The ribbon consists of the colours of the Afghanistan flag at the time, green, red and black at the edges, and a central white stripe with 1 thin blue and 2 thin red lines running down the middle. It looks like Hegseth has 2 campaign or service stars in addition. These denote various phases of the campaign. In Afghanistan, Hegseth also received a foreign award. Medal 6, the NATO Medal. Made of brass, NATO medals are identical in design, with a bar worn on the ribbon to identify the specific mission. The NATO ISAF bar would bear the words ISAF, which operated until 2014, and the ribbon is NATO blue with 2 white stripes on either end of the medal ribbon, with a line of silver through the middle of each white stripe. The medal was awarded for participation in NATO-led operations conducted in Afghanistan. Hegseth also received his 2nd Bronze Star in Afghanistan, and also perhaps his 2nd Army Commendation Medal, as his ribbon has a device. Hegseth was promoted Major in 2014 and left active duty, transferring to the Individual Ready Reserve. Rejoining the National Guard District of Columbia in 2019, he resigned again in 2021. His experiences in both theatres of conflict shaped his perspective on gender in the military. He is quoted as saying, "In the 360-degree battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan, women have served honourably and fought valiantly. Yet there is a key difference between being in harm's way and reacting to enemy contact and being in a direct combat operations role day in and day out. They are different scenarios that require different standards." At some point in his career, Hegseth also received a Joint Service Commendation Medal. Medal Number 7, the Joint Service Commendation Medal. This is awarded for exceptional service or achievement. The obverse of the medal consists of 4 conjoined hexagons of green enamel. Centred on this is an eagle in gold with outspread wings, grasping 3 arrows in its talons. Above the eagle are 13 gold stars, and at the base is a gold stylised heraldic delineation representing land, sea and air. This design is enclosed by a circular wreath of laurel bound with bands, also in gold. The reverse has a tablet in the centre suitable for engraving and the words "For Military Merit." At the bottom is a sprig of laurel. That certainly wasn't easy to describe. The ribbon has a central stripe of laurel green, on either side of which are stripes of white, green and white, and at the edges wide stripes of light blue. In addition, during his career, he was also awarded Medal Number 8, an Armed Forces Reserve Medal with an hourglass device likely for 10 years' service. The relief is of a cross torch, powder horn and horn depicted on the obverse. The reverse, for the National Guard, shows an eagle. The ribbon is yellow with 3 light blue edge stripes and 1 centre light blue stripe. Hegseth is quoted as saying, "Whether we like it or not, gender differences matter in a combat situation." Finally, we have Medal Number 9, the National Defence Service Medal. This medal is awarded to any member of the US Armed Forces who served during any designated periods of national emergency or armed conflict, from the Korean War, Vietnam, Gulf War, and up until the Global War on Terrorism from 2001. Its issuance was ended in December 2022. Made of bronze, the obverse shows a bald eagle perched on a sword and palm with the words National Defence above. The reverse shows a shield of the US coat of arms as well as oak and laurel leaves. The ribbon has a yellow centre stripe flanked by narrow stripes of red, white, blue, white and red. Therefore, in summary for Hegseth we have Bronze Star with cluster, Joint Service Commendation Medal, Army Commendation Medal with cluster, National Defence Service Medal, Afghanistan Campaign Medal, 2 stars, Iraq Campaign Medal, 2 stars, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, Armed Forces Reserve Medal with device, Army Service Ribbon, Army Overseas Service Ribbon with device, and finally a foreign NATO medal. I just want to stress there was no clear single source for this information, and I had to rely on some slightly blurry uniform pictures and various sources for a timeline of Hegseth's military career and awards. That said, I just want to caveat this video by saying there may be other medals that Hegseth has been awarded which I've not seen on the internet. However, I'm fairly confident I've got them all. Fingers crossed. In summary of his service, overall, Hegseth served from 2002 to 2021 in the National Guard, and during that time worked embedded and alongside the elite 101st Airborne Division, deploying twice abroad to Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a deployment at Guantanamo Bay. Although politically Pete Hegseth may be deemed by some as a controversial figure for the role of US Defence Secretary, looking at his medals, there's no doubting his military professionalism and dedication to service of his country. Thanks for watching. I hope you found some value from this, and I'll see you in the next one.